Hey there, and welcome back. My name's Craig. I realize I don't usually introduce myself in videos, but yeah, my name's Craig, and my little, weekends and night company is called Board and Design. Board being my last name. Yeah, so again, welcome back. If it's your first time, then I guess just welcome. If you are into the content, please subscribe. If you have any questions, post them down below. I always, look forward to answering questions that come in. And like most of us, we always like an opportunity to sit around and chat about wood or tools. And that's kind of why I'm here today. So today's video is basically a unboxing. And let me tell you, it's hard to not unbox when you're waiting for two parcels and you have one sitting here. I haven't cut the tape, so let's hope nothing's damaged. An unboxing of a track saw that I picked up, which is the WEN Tracksaw. I picked it up off Amazon here in Canada, so Amazon.ca. I think the total cost is around maybe 200 and change for a track saw, which is to me pretty nuts compared to like Makita and those guys that are like the 600 and up kind of prices. This is a pretty fair price. So yeah, so that's the purpose of today's video. So we're going to unbox it and hope that nothing's damaged, because it'll be really disappointing to have that on video and won't be able to use it. But let's keep our fingers crossed everything's okay. And yeah, then we'll maybe run her through a couple of tests, general thoughts, and you can kind of watch along and make up your own mind what you think about quality was for a $200 track saw. I mean, the aluminum the aluminum in the track itself, I'm sure must be worth 50, 60 bucks. So yeah, and if you hear a dog barking in the background, that'd be my beagle outside playing with my son. So apologize for the audio if that's the case. Yeah, so let's get to it. Hello. Okay, so here we go. Now my only main concern is the track itself here. Hopefully you can see this in the shot. The little dingy downing on here. Now I ordered this and the saw came in earlier than the track, and the reason was apparently the track got mangled in shipping. So I got a notification that it was basically undeliverable because of damages. So they sent a second one afterwards, so I had to wait for this to come in. So I haven't opened this at all, which is pretty difficult when you're waiting on something to come in and not open one of two packages. So I guess let's see if the tracks are busted up first, and then that'll maybe give us a hint on how the rest of this may go. Doesn't too bad where the dent was. I thought there'd be more I was hoping for more packaging in here, but it seems like we're okay. All right, beautiful. Okay, so let's get this box here. I don't know if these are just for shipping or if this is meant for storage. It's like a plastic end cap on each end. Oop. Those are pretty heavy, so I'm guessing they were meant to be. So we're gonna hang on to these guys. I'm guessing it's to store the two tracks, but they don't come off the simplest. So there we go. See, maybe there's a trick to it I'm missing. Okay, so more cardboard, piece of paper, and one Allen key. And oh, the connecting bars are there. Okay, so this set comes with two 50-inch, which is pretty awesome when you think about it. Two 50-inch tracks. So it's basically a 100-inch track kit. Basically in the kit, there's just the two tracks, an Allen key, which is right here. We'll pop this guy to the plastic. And the Allen key is basically just used for these little crossbars. And get one set out here and take a look at it. And so these little bars here, there's actually a bar and a spacer. Oh, I'm assuming so you don't jam holes into the bar below. Basically, this bar goes on the end piece, and then the next set of tracks screws into it. There's another hollow channel here, and that's basically it. So you can turn this 50-inch into an 100-inch. I'll be honest, I'll probably mainly be using the 50-inch bar on its own. It's rare that I'm cutting stuff that's at really extreme lengths. So I'm assuming that it'll have a little less usage, but either way, awesome to have. I'm just going to tighten that guy in. I don't know if you guys want to place bets on how long till I lose this Allen key. I would hazard a bet that it's not going to be very long. So yes, the track anodized aluminum, as you would expect, I guess. there's kind of a foam, pretty decent quality foam rubber on the back, and then the edge of this is actually like a plastic. I'm assuming that that's where the saw blade will land, but we're going to find that out once we kind of get into this. And there's these two little end caps that kind of hold everything together. Too bad there actually wasn't a little pocket for the Allen key somewhere, but that would be kind of cool if there was. But yeah, so these clip on the ends, and it basically can store. I'm not going to put it all back together because once we get the saw running, we're actually going to try these guys out. So we'll leave it in a safe place for now so we can get to it. All right, let's get to the saw here. Now I don't have the highest of hopes on quality, just due to price, but we'll see. Okay. The box is a little beat up inside. Hopefully that won't mean anything's wrong. I'm just going to chuck the garbage off camera here for now. Okay. I'll be honest, it's a little bit bigger than I thought it was going to be. That's what she said, eh? I expected this to be pretty small, but it's actually a pretty decent size. Okay. Jeez, it's actually truthfully better than I thought. Now, there's a lot of rattly stuff here on here yet, but we'll figure it out as we go. A little dust port, dude. A little card here. Soft. Okay. Okay, so it's actually it's actually like a cast. I'd have to say cast aluminum if I'm guessing. It's painted black, but it feels, to me, it feels like a white metal or cast aluminum. I'm guessing it's probably cast aluminum, even though. Trying to get a look at the blade. So on top here, I'm gonna bring this up to camera, hopefully you can see. There's actually different settings here, and it's basically for full plunge and for partial plunge. So we're gonna try full plunge here. And I think I have to push this down. I don't remember here. Maybe not, maybe I have to have the trigger pulled too. No? Well. Oh, that's why I'm trying to go backwards. I'm so used to a skill saw feel. So is that full? No. Okay, so maybe this is the full. It feels like there's a little guard there that it's hitting. There's something it's clicking on against, but maybe that is the full depth. Can't imagine it. No, there's no way that's full depth. It must be able to go a lot deeper than that. So we may have to resort going to the instructions. Uh-oh. I feel my manhood disappearing. Oh, comes with a spare set of brushes, which is kind of nice for the motor. That's kind of cool, because that probably will eventually happen. Although, I can't imagine using a track saw the way that you would typically use a skill saw, the amount, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. Looking for the basic starting guide here, if we can find it. Dust collector, we've got that figured out. Blade changing, oh okay. Free plunge is the middle, alright. So, free plunge it is. Oh, there we go. So what is it that it's catching on? I have no idea. So full plunge, it's a 6.5 inch blade. Now, do I have to have a tape measure close by? Probably not, as one never does. Oh, here we go. Messy shop is a worked in shop. Let's just keep telling ourselves that. So from the base to that tooth, just a little bit over 2 1/4. We'll say 2 3/8 depth would be the maximum cut. So 2 3/8. So I'm trying to think. There's very rare. I'm trying to think if there's anything I would cut bigger than that. Because even I've had some 3-inch pine that I've had it cut up, but that's probably about it. I'm trying to think if there's much else that I've had that's much thicker. But typically, if I'm buying slab work stuff for shelving, that sort of thing, I'm usually only dealing in 2-inch thicknesses. I try to, any bigger than that, it starts to get kind of awkward to work with. So that's probably enough of a depth for me. I gotta say, I thought it would be a lot cheaper than this, to be honest, which is a good thing. I mean, there's a ton of dials here that I have no idea what any of them do yet, but I'm assuming we'll figure that out as we go. Let's see if we can get into a piece of track. Probably one of the smarter things to do here, as it is a track saw. Oh. All right. Now let's do it the old way without reading instructions first. Okay. Doesn't seem to lock in yet, but I assume that's because I'm not doing something that I should be doing. So this turns into. There seems to be a little flip out tab here, which oh, there we go. I just gotta pull up. So that probably locks it in. So let's give it a whirl here. Ooh. Yes, indeedly do. Okay. So that locks that tab in. Now what do we gotta do with the other tabs? Is the question. There we go. Oh, there we go. Okay. Seems like it. Oh, it doesn't go backwards. Okay, it's kind of interesting. So there's this tab here. I'm gonna bring it up to the camera so you can see. There's a tab here that rotates. Ooh, actually unlocks if I let go. We'll move this back off to the side here. So this little tab here, when you rotate it, it actually allows the saw to move in both directions. As soon as you let go of this tab, it actually prevents it from going backwards, so you can only go forwards, which maybe isn't a bad thing. And here's this little flip out tab I was mentioning, so it's a pull up and a flip in. I find myself a plank here that we can test cut on. We'll get something set up here, hang on. Okay, so, yeah, so in the track we've got, I'm going to try to get as close as I can. There's a tiny little flip out cam here. So as you can see, a little awkward to do here, but there, try to get, hopefully this focuses. So this flips out, locks it basically into the track system. And then there's a little, if you can see, there's like a cam here on the back. And basically the cam is an anti-kickback. So it allows the saw to go forward along the track, but if you hit kickback, that cam jams it in so it can't go backwards. I kind of understand the idea and the concept, I'll be honest. I think it's, the concept seems cool. But I'm trying to figure out, like, so after each cut, you have to try to slide this thing back while holding the cam. It's not an on-off thing, it's a spring-loaded cam, so you have to actually keep tension to keep the cam in the off position and then slide the track back. Now, this is a $90 track and a $150 track saw. So as you can imagine, it doesn't like glisten across the track. So I could see that maybe being a little annoying. I'll be honest, it looks like it's pretty easy to remove that part. So that may happen somewhere in its lifetime. We'll see. Yeah, so that's basically it. The other two, there's two more screws. I'm bringing this up so you can see here. One on the top, one on the back, and these are basically fine tuners. I'm not sure. I think there's like a same thing. There's a small wheel inside. So I think you can basically tighten those up if you want to tighten it along the track. So I've tried laying it on the track just to take a look, and it looks like there's like a flexible piece of plastic here on the edge of the track. If we can bring it so you can see, but there's actually like a piece of, woo, peel it right off, I'm not careful. And it seems like the blade actually rubs on that. So I don't know if I'm gonna like end up trimming that down the first cut. So if it's basically like run a cut and it trims that down, that basically gives you the visual of where the blade really hits. I have a feeling that's how it's gonna work out. So I've got, just looking through what I had to cut, I've got some, I guess that'd be probably 3/4 birch. I'm not sure how I got 1 3/4 here. Most it's 1 inch, but for some reason I got a piece of 3/4 here. This was actually a birch tree that was out in my yard. And I have a bunch of this in the racks. I don't know if you can probably see some on the back wall here over the garage door too. That was the main reason I got the track saws. I've got all this birch, and I do a lot of like live edge charcuterie boards, which I'm sure you see, you know, I'm sure guys out there doing this do a lot of them as well. Birch isn't all that pretty, sadly. I've learned, you know, when you're doing like black walnut stuff and in olive wood especially, they're kind of like those premium woods get a premium price. So to me, those are the ones that usually move the best. So I've had some maple that I've gotten locally, like I think from my dad's yard actually, some silver maple. I did charcuteries and that, and I find that they really don't demand the same amount of money, mainly because maple's just almost too clean looking. And birch isn't very different from that. Yellow birch, obviously you can tell by the color. It doesn't look very exotic, so even in a charcuterie board it'll look nice. But when people see it, it doesn't look that different from something they could find, you know, at a regular hardware store, or even sometimes a dollar store, sadly. So that's kind of, I think you learn as you do this more often that part of what we do is you're selling a premium product. That's why people are willing to pay that extra money, right? Is to pay the extra to get something that's above and beyond what they'd be able to buy at just any general store. So yeah, so birch isn't all that fancy. So what I'm gonna end up doing, I think, with a lot of this stuff, I'm gonna square off an edge with said track saw that we're talking about today. And then I can run it through the saw and try to get some, basically make some dimensional lumber out of it, not construction lumber, but dimensional in size. And then I'll probably put that stuff through the mill. So I'm thinking making like Christmas ornaments, even some dishes, depending if I got the 1 inch stuff, I can get it to an actual flat 3/4. This is 3/4, so by the time I take that bow out of it, which is, stand it up here on the end so I can get to put it to the camera. You can see she's got a bit of a wow in it. And I mean, this isn't a center piece, this is getting out near the outside, so you wouldn't expect it to cup as bad as it has. So the stuff that I have that's closer to the center to the pith, I'm guessing, is probably going to be U-shaped. So that's going to determine a lot too. A lot of what I can make out of it's going to, a lot of time factors into what it actually takes to get it to a reasonably flat piece of wood to use. Yeah, so this stuff was cut last year, and I've had it sitting here in the racks in the garage. And because it's up close to the ceiling and I've got electric heat, like a fan-powered heater or a blower, the stuff dries out really quickly, which is probably part of the reason why I cupped. In retrospect, I should have strapped it to keep some tension on so it would hold flat. I've got everything kind of like stickered apart, but I don't think there was enough weight on it to keep most of these things flat. This one was on the top, so it definitely cut. That was a really long story for talking about why I chose this piece of wood. But here we are. So I'm going to put a couple of scrap pieces down here to set that on. And if this is your first video, you'll realize that I have a very worked-in shop. Definitely not the spotless shops you typically see on these videos, but I don't know, I think this is a realistic view of how most of us are doing that. I mean, I don't have this as a full-time job, so if you only have a few hours on the weeknights and you know, your weekends, you tend to not do as much maintenance as maybe you could. And you know, cleaning up and all that sort of stuff. It sometimes gets pretty bad, but you know, especially if I find you're doing lathe work and stuff, like it makes so much sawdust and saw chips and everything else, it just adds up. But yeah, once I run out of wood typically, then I'll kind of go back and start trying to clean up a bit, and I'm almost at that point, although I did go to London Lumber today, the local lumber yard, and picked up some live edge walnut. So I've got probably 10 charcuterie boards to make, I guess, and then I'll burn through that, and then I'll be pretty much out of wood again, so it'll be time to either clean it or if I start processing this birch. Yeah, so we'll get this guy up here. Now this is actually longer than 50 inches, and it is ridiculously square. But we just want to try to see if we can cut a straight edge with this today, so I'm not going to get too over picky with it. Now, for today's example, we're going to have to set a depth on this, I guess, because I'd rather not cut my entire work table to pieces as well. So, let's get this guy to slide up to 1/2 inch, 1 inch. I would say 1 inch, even with the crookedness, should get us there. So, we'll try that and see how it fares. If there's videos you guys are thinking you'd like to see or things you're curious about, I mean, for all means, post in the comments, because I'm always looking for ideas too. You know, and I try not to do things that have been maybe overdone. I find YouTube, you know, as all of us, we start kind of scanning things, and there's a lot of videos that are done kind of over and over again. I'm trying to avoid doing that, and just doing stuff that's, you know, practical for the rest of us. You'll probably never, I say never, but maybe someday, you know, all things line up magically. But yeah, you'll never probably see me doing a $1,000 saw review or anything like that. It's all pretty real life, practical kind of costing. So nothing super fancy on my dime typically. All right, let's see if we can get this guy to lock in here. Right. Okay, this looks right. Okay, so now am I going to be able to tape this and not be in the way? Probably not. Let me just move the camera here. Okay. Some AC here. My muffs. Protect those ears, guys. You can never. One of the best investments you can make is, to me anyway, are some Bluetooth earmuffs. So you can at least listen to something while you're doing this work. Not bad. Not too loud. Okay. Well, as suspected, it most definitely does cut the plastic off here, this plastic edge, to give you the new, I guess, the real cut edge. So it is, as I was saying, oh yeah, you can see here on the back side. I'll get this saw off here so you can bring the track a little closer to you. Okay. So if you can see here, bring this up, hopefully it'll focus. So here's the difference from the edge that actually comes, and this is where the first plunge happened. So it's probably, it's not a full 8, but it's getting there. Yeah, not quite, it's more than a 16th, but not an 8th. So what that leaves you with is the actual true straight edge. So I guess it'd almost be in the interest to hook this whole thing up as a 100-inch and just run the saw across it so you actually know what you've got as far as an edge. The cut's actually pretty decent. Now I didn't finish the cut because I didn't have all the track together. Take a little piece of that off. But that's, I mean, if anyone that's worked with birch knows how hard this stuff is. And yeah, that actually made a pretty decent cut. And I mean, I wasn't doing it perfectly. I've never run the saw before, so you don't really know how it's going to perform or how hard to push it. I was trying to be pretty gentle with it. But that's actually not bad. Again, it's doing a rip cut as well. But yeah, there's little bits of black plastic everywhere from that first cut. It actually slid a little easier than I thought, but I didn't tighten up the set screws in it. So overall, it worked pretty well. What was that? There, we'll just give her the old manual finishing off. Yeah, that's actually pretty decent. I was just checking to see where I replunged. Now, it looked like it moved, but I didn't clamp it down, so that's probably my mistake. And again, if this was flat, the whole thing was kind of rocking on this really uneven surface. So, I mean, the stuff that I have that's 1 inch, I will definitely plane it flat before I actually try to cut the edges. And then I can actually put it through the saw. I think this is I think the fellow that mills my lumber for me, he had the saw, his mill was misset, and so he had gave me a little thin piece of 1/8 inch, which I ended up just throwing in the garbage. I wish I had a wood stove here. I give most things to my father-in-law for his wood stove, all my cutoffs. This was the other part of it, so yeah. So overall, I gotta say, I'm fairly impressed with that. I wish we could try out a whole bunch of different woods, but I don't really want to waste a lot of wood trying it out either. I mean, I got it for a very specific purpose, so yeah. So overall, I'm gonna unplug this so I don't accidentally have the finger off on camera, because that would be pretty bad. Yeah, overall the build quality is pretty decent, so I'll try to bring it up close here so you can see. So the bottom plate here, like I say, I would say is cast aluminum. Could just be cast metal though. Turn that little guy in. On the inside here, you've got basically a plunge depth. See if I can get this where you can see it. So here's a plunge depth. There's actually measurements written here, which I'm sure you can't see on camera. I think I set it to 1 1/4 inches for that cut, but you can just basically loosen it and drop it all the way down for the full 2 1/4. There's settings here on the top of the blade, or top of the blade, up near the top of the blade, and basically it's, you know, for a low cut, for your regular full plunge, and then there's actually a blade change setting, so you can drop this way down, which I think weirdly you have to have the trigger pushed in to do it. So it brings the thing right into the window here, and it doesn't lock the blade though. I'm assuming that there's this guy up top. Yeah, there's a push button here. You see why I unplugged this handle on the blade. That'll actually hold the blade still so you can get an Allen key in. Allen key is conveniently with this one, the Allen key is actually on the cord, so you shouldn't lose that too easily. There's dust port here on the back, which feels a little bit janky, but doesn't feel like it's going to fall out. And then it comes with this little tiny plastic adapter, and I'm assuming that's just so you can point it away from blowing it basically on your... Yeah, it basically turns it so it points straight back. I don't think you'd want, or I guess if you want to point it down, but it's interesting that there's still, I don't have anything that would fit this, I don't think. I'm trying to think if the hose on my sanding system would, but you know, if you were doing it, I mean, out here in the shop, I don't worry. Obviously, you can see in the background, I don't get too torn up around the mess. So, yeah, that's pretty impressive. This is the 45 part, the bevel cuts, one on the front, one on the back. Now, it's got the bevels marked on it. I mean, geez, I don't know if I would trust that or not, but there's bevels here marked. I mean, I always find most of the time with saws, it's pretty hard to take that stuff at face value. I would still probably want to put something on there to check it, if it was me, before I was doing anything expensive. I'm guessing we have a fairly reduced cut at 45. So for the blade to plunge, I should add, you actually have to push this in and pull the trigger. And this part, I gotta say, is not super easy to do. Oh, I guess that was because of the setting I had. So it must be like a lock setting where it won't let you unlock the, yeah. That's okay. So bring it up to here. Oh, okay, that's okay, yeah. We'll call that user error on my part. Oh, wow. No. See, that's... I feel like it's striking something when it shouldn't, but... I don't feel like I'm getting the full plunge. I had that same feeling earlier that, I don't know if it's that shifter was not going all the way back, or... Okay, we're gonna have to do some investigating here, because it definitely feels like there's a catch there. It's definitely not here. I'm not even really sure where it's catching, to be honest, but if you can hear, it feels like it's got a catch. It's actually, it looks like it's kind of like stuck almost in the blade change. Like there's a pin that's supposed to be pulled backwards. Now we may have found the first issue with this, I guess, eh? Let's try to straighten her back out here and see. I don't know if it's a 45 that's having a problem, but... Okay, well this is pretty strange. So there's like, you can tell there's actually a pin here. Let me do this so we can see. There's actually a pin in here, and if the pin's not retracted, it actually stops passage. Let me get it turned here. So it actually stops the passage to about this point here. Hopefully you can see this okay. We'll get turned here. There's a point right here. So there's one track, stops, and there's a secondary. And if that pin doesn't go back, it basically stops it, which is essentially the blade change mode, which, I mean, feels like a kind of a useless mode to me for the blade changing, but if that pin doesn't go back, then the plunge is very much limited. So blade change mode. Oh, so I put it into. Do I have it in the right mode? Blade, no, I think that's supposed to be the blade change mode there. So there's the full depth. Okay, let's try the 45 here. This may be the worst video I've ever made. Nothing like figuring it out on film, right? Okay, so we're 45s. Okay, so the depth's still pretty decent even at 45. Okay, so, well, final thoughts here. So, for the money, I mean, I don't know, man, like $200. To me, it's like, for a Tracksaw at least, I mean, 200 bucks if you're buying a palm sander is probably a bit heavy, but for a Tracksaw, that seems pretty fair to me. Again, I don't think it's going to be as good as the Makita or any of those kind of guys that are, you know, the ones that are quite popular and you see a lot of. But for, you know, the regular Joe like myself, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys watching, pretty hard to beat a $200 price tag for something like this. It, you know, really does have a lot of great uses. I mean, we've all been there, like, you know, with smaller shop, it's like you get a 4x8 sheet of plywood and you're like, okay, I'm by myself, how am I going to get this through the saw, you know, in a reasonable way without, you know, either having to kick back and, you know, adding a nice horizontal bruise across my midsection, you know. So it's like, just for cutting down plywood sheets alone, to me, will be worthwhile. You know, I'll pick up some of the hard foam to put on the floor so you can lay the sheet down and do it on the ground. to me, it's almost worth it for that, really, just for safety's sake. You know, if you're working on the saw by yourself, to get something in a more reasonable size to handle. For me, cutting the live edge off stuff is going to be super handy, especially I've got a lot of that birch. I mean, it was a tree, so I think I had 3 logs sawn up, so I mean, all told, I've probably got, I don't know, 16 or 18 boards there. 1-inch boards, and all those have to have an edge rip down on the side before I can put them through the saw, you know, safely. So to me, that itself, that was the main reason I bought it, and it'll come in super handy for that. But yeah, just for ripping down panels and stuff, I think it's going to be really handy. Because yeah, again, like the majority of us out there today, like we typically work alone. And the better you can get stuff into a handling position, I find that, you know, the safer it is. So I think that's probably where I'll get the majority of the uses. We'll see long term how the blade does. Like, I find with a lot of cheap saws, like, I mean, here in Canada, we buy, you know, Canadian Tire stuff is always pretty fair price, but you learn pretty quick that, you know, the first best thing you can do is put a really good blade on them. Their blades are okay, but if you change it for like a Diablo blade or something, all of a sudden the saw is like, oh, this is a really good saw. So you can't expect much for like a carbide Chinese blade. I mean, that's what will be on this as well. So I'll probably will swap this out for something a little bit better. And honestly, I'll generally always be ripping with it. I mean, I've got a 12-inch miter, so doing, you know, those kind of cross cuts I can do in a pretty big panel. And I mean, at the table saw, really, if I get into really large panels. So this to me mainly will be a rip saw, so I'll probably go to something with much less teeth. A thin kerf, you know, like the Diablo blades. And I think that will probably make it work a lot better and a lot easier working on it. The only other thing for me is I'm going to have to see with the whole cam thing. I'm on the fence about it, to be totally honest. I totally understand the purpose behind it, but it seems a little weird, like that I'd have to run it all the way past either the track or to, you know, it's going to be a bit like, you know, rubbing your belly, patting your head, trying to get this thing, the cam off and get this pulled back on the track efficiently on something that maybe doesn't work that well. Probably the thing I will probably try to do is I'll actually probably put a little bit of wax on the bottom and maybe even a little bit of wax on the tracks. And I think that will probably help, because, you know, with like that anodized aluminum, almost, you know, you get typically with like aluminum rulers and that sort of stuff with like the meter sticks. It has like its own kind of weird texture to it, I guess would be probably the right word. And so it almost creates its own sort of friction. So I find that it doesn't maybe run as smooth as it could. Whereas I find with a lot of stuff it's more of a polished aluminum, like a smoother aluminum. So I think like some kind of wax would probably make a world of difference. Hopefully that my heater isn't making too much blowing noise here. Yeah, so overall, I mean, I gotta say, for only making a cut with it, I mean, I'll do a follow-up here down the way with probably like a shop update video at some point. For making a single cut and for 200 bills to my door, that's pretty hard to beat, to be honest, for a track saw. I mean, most of us don't own one. I've always wanted one. I've looked at this one many times on Amazon, and typically it was out of stock, or oddly, they didn't have tracks. Now, there's tracks right now, and it's $91 for 100 inches of track, which, if you've looked at track saws, is a ridiculous deal. So, my reco, yeah, I would honestly say, you know, if you're looking in the market for one and you don't want to spend the $700 for the Makita, this is a pretty decent option to get into it. And I'd be curious to know if you have one, how it's worked out for you long term, and what your feelings are on it. So hopefully, like I say, it's not going back at this point. I'll run it till it dies. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I hope you guys are all staying in the shop and getting a little bit of stuff done. I'm trying to get out every night that I can, and you know, stockpiling stuff. We're almost. I mean, I say that jokingly. I'm on the east coast of Canada. Spring is still really a long ways away, but the craft shows will be starting up again soon, so I'm trying to stockpile up some stuff and get some stock ready to go. Yeah, and so yeah, future videos, I think I'll probably do something on maybe some learnings I've had. I've been doing this now for a couple of years and done a bunch of craft shows, and I've definitely had a trial by fire learning curve on doing this stuff, and you know, more than happy to share the things I've learned, at least, that have helped me kind of along the way with the rest of you guys as well, and maybe help you guys, you know, at least, you know, if nothing else, earn enough to buy tools. That's always the goal for me, is to get more tools. So yeah, take care of yourself, guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.